Good evening and welcome to another edition of The Probe. We are just about 2 days to the deadline given by government for the domestic debt exchange program, which was first launched on the 5th of December 2022. It was launched as an invitation for the voluntary exchange of approximately 137 billion cedis of the domestic notes and bonds of the Republic, including ESLA and Dachi bonds, for a package of new bonds to be issued by the Republic. We have seen outright rejections, first from organized labor on the inclusion of pension funds. Then came a more organized and fiery rejection from individual bondholders and pensioners, and fought separate battles for total exemption from the exercise. Well, this led to an initial extension from January 16 to 31st January. And will there be another extension? Meanwhile, the clock is ticking for the much talked about IMF deal. We have heard members of government, including President Akufo-Addo, hoping to clinch the board-level agreement by March ending. In the meantime, crucial meetings have been held and more critical decisions have been taken, and we get to dissect them right here on The Probe tonight, live on the Joy News channel, Joy 99.7 FM, myjoyonline.com, DSTV channel 421, Go TV, we are on 421, and our various social media platforms. I'll introduce my guest to you shortly, but I've been talking about the countdown and the clock ticking. We know that a 6-member committee was put together by government after that forum or that interaction with the individual bondholders forum as well as the pensioners bondholders as well. And out of that meeting last week, we know that some decisions, crucial decisions, were taken. And 2 days to go, we'll take a look at all these decisions that were taken. But we know some alternatives. Before the fight began, a lot of people were asking, or even we've heard members of government ask, what the alternatives will be if individual bondholders are also exempted after they had exempted the pension funds from this particular domestic debt exchange program. We are looking at 2 days more to go, which is the deadline is on the 31st of January. So then let's take a look at some of the decisions that we're taking from that meeting. So pension funds, like I said, if you see the orange color also is exempted. So pension funds has been exempted. The Ghana Association of Banks, they've reached an agreement. They did so on the 23rd of January 2023. The Ghana Insurance Association, that's the GIA, also reached a decision, some sort, with government. That is on January 26, 2023. Then the Ghana Security Industry, they've also clinched an agreement or a deal of a sort with government. Then the individual bondholders that we've been talking about, there's a promise of exemption. And that promise we are taking a look at critically tonight. And we know that was a meeting they held on Friday. After that technical committee meeting, they decided, we know Mr. Arkes leading the side of government and Senor Jose also leading the side of the individual bondholders forum. They reached some form of agreement with them. There are some alternatives in terms of revenue and expenditure. We'll take a look at it. But this is what the parties have agreed so far. We start with the Ghana Association of Banks. For them, there's a payment of 5% coupon for 2023 and the removal of all clauses in the exchange memorandum that gives the public to solely vary the terms of the exchange. That's the Republic. And then clarity of the operational framework and terms of the Ghana Financial Stability Fund. That's what the Ghana Association of Banks have agreed on. We know that earlier there was some rejection and then some changes have been done to it. Then for the Ghana Security Industry, individuals who hold bonds in the trust account with SEC will be offered any exemptions granted to individual bondholders, and then a removal of all clauses in the exchange memorandum that gives the Republic to solely vary the terms of the exchange. For the Ghana Insurance Association, earlier there were talks about a total collapse of the insurance industry if nothing really is done about it, or if the domestic debt exchange is allowed to stay the way it is. So similar to the conditions of the Ghana Association of Bankers, they reached a similar agreement. And then also to provide support for insurance companies through the solvency windows of the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, that's a GFSF. So that's where we are in terms of the agreements that they've had. But I've been telling you about the Individual Bondholders Forum, their meetings that they've held. They've made some alternative arrangements or proposals to government for revenue. These are some of the things they feel if we do, we'll be able to rake in the revenue that is so much needed, such that they can get that exemption from the domestic debt exchange. So first, enforce the filing of interest or coupon income on corporate instruments. That's the ESLA, Dachi, and Cocoa bills. That's supposed to give us some 104 million. Then review the regulatory environment to increase oil production. We get 3.6 billion from there. Government should exercise its right under the ACA Petroleum Agreement for immediate commencement. We get some 5.6 billion from there. Also expedite reforms to enforce property taxes, amongst others. Also pursue the recovery of funds lost through financial irregularities of MDAs in the Auditor General's report. That's from 2015 to 2022. We are supposed to rake in 13.9 billion from there, and then also pursue the recovery of the over 5 billion tax evasion in the petroleum downstream sector. Obviously, we are getting 5 billion from there. Now we talk about revenue as well. We're still on revenue and diverse loss-making, defunct and troubled 17 state-owned enterprises. So all that, when it comes to revenue, including the boss margin, which should be converted into a levy and channeled into government revenue. We know what the boss margin is. That's the levy or the taxes that is put on petroleum products. And that's the bulk oil storage and transport. That's the levy. They are hoping that if it is converted, that tax is there. If it is converted into a levy and channeled into government revenue, we are getting 300 million from there. So that's the total. Let me just look at the total. So it comes to 55.104 billion. Note that down. We're going to work some mathematics there. And then we talk about expenditure. These are the alternatives that they are looking at also. The budget provision for the energy sector shortfall, or 23 billion, should be revised downwards. It gives us 3 billion there. All the way to review the free SHS program to make it more efficient through effective targeting and allowing parents who can pay to do so. We get 1 billion. I'm curious to hear from government on this, whether this is something they are actually agreeing to. So with expenditure also, we get 28.35 billion. So I'm sure you've worked the math. From 55.14 billion plus 28.35 billion, off the top of my head, we're supposed to get some 83.5 billion. That's what we get. That's the total. So that's the alternatives that the individual bondholders have proposed to government on this. And this was signed by Mr. Akest on one side, representing the Ministry of Finance and Government for that matter, and Senyor Hosi also on the other side, representing the Individual Bondholders Forum. I've talked about that 6-member committee. I have 3 out of the 6-member committee here on the probe tonight. We take a look at it. I have Martin Pebu, is a convener, Individual Bondholders Forum, Association of Ghana, and he was in that meeting as well. I have Dr. Edu Ananientri, convener, Pensioners Bondholders Forum. He's also a former Director General of Securities and Exchange Commission, my guest tonight, and also Senyor Hosi, convener, Individual Bondholders Forum. He actually signed that on behalf of his side. And then also much later we'll be joined by Professor Godfred Bokping. He's an economist and professor of finance. I am Emefa Apau, and this is The Probe. Of course, I have your questions as well and your concerns. Do send them via our social media platforms. We'll get talking shortly. Please stay with me.
Acknowledge that this debt exchange program is important for us to get a move from the SLA into an F-fund board decision. Then the question becomes, how do we, quote unquote, burden share in the process? And how do we also acknowledge the idiosyncratic livelihoods of people versus the balance of the fund program? And so that's what we will seek to do before the end of the program, for at least 80% of us to join it. And I'm confident that we'll be able to harness that.
The concern is that, well, will this thing be extended again?
No, I don't think so. I'm confident that we'll get there. You know, we have done the staff level agreement, as you know. We met with the Paris Club membership, and we have given them till end of February for us to go through what we call the common framework, or some version of it, but that should be facilitated. And then we expect them to go to board in Washington in March. So really, we don't have that type of time.
You're welcome back. This is The Probe here on the Joy News channel. We're taking a look at the debt exchange, the deadline, the exemptions, alternatives to securing an IMF program. And tonight, Mr. Martin Pebu is my guest in the studios. Later on, via Zoom, we'll be joined by Dr. Ananientri and then also Professor Godfred Bokping at some point. Senyor Hosi will also join us via Zoom. And thank you so much for joining us tonight here on The Probe. A lot of meetings you've been holding, and I see we've been going through the alternatives that you gave to that technical committee that you're working on, but really, tell me about Friday, the latest meeting. I've seen the statement that you issued. I see it's a promise. We'll talk about whether it's actually a done deal or it remains a promise, how long it stays as a promise, because you have just 2 days to go. So let's talk about Friday's meeting.
Yeah, so Friday was a big breakthrough, very massive. But naturally, it had gone into the weekend, people were tired, and so there wasn't enough time to come and do a lot of radio and TV announcement of it, okay? It also ties in, you can get a sense of the meeting we had, that the minister would wish that we don't, push it too much because it's in meetings with other groups. Yes, so it's okay, but it was a massive breakthrough, which is what yesterday we issued in one of the statements, saying that he has given firm assurance, it's a promise that government would honor the existing bonds. That's coupons and principals. That's effectively an exemption.
Okay.
Effectively, that's an exemption.
Or was he clear in that
Extremely
communication that this is an exemption?
No, so you see, that's why I said, so the language, what else does it mean? Because there's still on the table the invitation, okay, the domestic debt exchange program, because it's still on the table, naturally it is the case that he would still say that, oh, if you want to join, come and join.
Okay.
And of course, knowing the position he's taking, in his heart, he would have wished that we all come on board. So it's to be expected that as long as he hasn't closed the January 31st deadline, he would say, he would not be willing to use the word, you are exempted. No, because he wishes that we all join. But for all the reasons we've canvassed so far, showing that, look, these coupons are salaries to us. That's what we use in paying all our bills, etc. All the arguments we've made over the period, you see that we are unable to join. So he still made that invitation several times, but we're very clear that respectfully, the promise that government will honor the existing bonds was sufficient for us. We want to hold on to what we have. Yes, you see, that's it.
But when is this promise taking effect, did he say? Let's start with the honoring of the coupons and principals as they fall due. When did he say when exactly that promise will take effect? Do we know?
Okay, so this is the way I understand it. It means that immediately, I know next month, there's going to be some about 6 points, so billions, about, let's just say, a little over a huge chunk of it will be due next month, right? Yes, several billions. Let's put it that way. I don't have the exact figure here. Will be due next month. So it means that he's going to honor. Yes. So it's immediate. It means that if today any is due, when you look on the debt exchange, the program, there's a table showing what is due at what. Yeah, so all those, as they fall due, government will honor.
Okay, but it's surprising that we have not heard from government just yet in terms of a communication of this, because I've seen that committee meeting and, of course, the outcome of your meetings, the technical committee meetings, signed by Mr. Arkest and, of course, Senior Hosi on one side. But we are yet to get an official communication from government on this. Do we have any indication as to when exactly that will come? Because we've seen Ghana Association of Bankers and Ministry of Finance, there's a joint statement communicating the agreement on this. We've seen Ghana Insurers Association and also the GSIA and this. When are we expecting an official communication from government? Do we have any indication?
Yes, so we are still talking to the minister.
Okay.
We are still talking to him, trying to see how soon that can be done. It's not been done, but MFI can tell you clearly, I was in the meeting, he made that firm assurance several times over. It was very clear. Look, at a point, sometimes when you go into a meeting, questions are asked, and so the answerer, so to speak, is forced to repeat statements that he had made earlier. At a point, he said, look, I can't even say I won't pay.
Okay.
Yes, I can't even say I will not honor the existing bonds. Yes, so he was very clear. It's not just like one time and then that was it. Several times, statements and questions subsequently. kind of brought up the same core issue, and he had to repeat several times, except that he was so very clear in his mind that, oh, why don't we come on board and help? And we were also very clear that, oh, we're already helping because we are living a cost of living crisis. The increased prices, cocoa from 1 cedi to 3 cedis, kose, bread, all those things, Pepsodent, everything. So to the extent that we are in the economy and bearing the brunt of the cost of living crisis, that in itself is sharing the burden. Then also you see in the proposals, you see the taxes that will be taken, etc. So we are all already in it.
As bondholders, will you be surprised to hear something different from what was promised in that meeting? Because, of course, we've heard that initially we were told individual bondholders will not be included. At some point that happened. Would you be surprised if you hear anything different from what was agreed or promised to you in that meeting going forward tomorrow all the way to Tuesday?
Amafa, what we should say is that will I be surprised? Extremely. Extremely, because he was very clear that for the existing bonds, they were going to honor. That cannot change. No. Rather, there's this part that we should mention. It's possible that in his bid to woo us to come on board, they will offer better terms for the individual. You know, as it stands now, it's 0 coupon for this year, right? And the next year, 5%, etc., etc. You see, even for the Association of Bankers, they improve the terms and all that.
Exactly.
So what is clear is that he may come with, better terms, like a last minute, a charm offensive, last minute. But we're very clear that, no, what we are holding is sufficient for us, it's sufficient.
Okay.
Yes, so tomorrow if you see that they say, oh, individual bondholders are being offered, let's say, 10% coupon this year and the rest, still, it's very clear to our members that they want to hold on to the old bonds.
Okay.
Very, very, very clear. Yes, very clear.
Well, there are key issues that have come up, some questions, some messages, and then also those who have already signed on to this before the deadline. What happens to such members since you're leading them to be able to negotiate a good deal with government? And we are hoping that this promise stays as it stands now. But Dr. Anani also joins us via Zoom. They've also been fighting this. They were hoping to fight this separately, but I'm told he was also in that meeting, at least, and that you held over the period, the technical committee meeting, and then on Friday's meeting as well. Professor Bokping will also join us, because what does this mean for securing an IMF deal amongst others? I'm told Professor Bokping is on phone. But let me come to you, Dr. Anani. Thank you so much for joining us via Zoom this evening here on the probe.
Welcome.
So what's really your understanding also of that meeting that you all attended, especially on Friday? We'll talk about the other meetings where you propose alternatives, amongst others, in terms of revenue and expenditure. But give me a sense of your understanding of what the promise was going out of Friday's meeting.
Well, thank you. I think what happened at Friday meeting is what the minister has always been saying. And that is clear that
Sorry, it appears we have a technical hitch to Dr. Anani. Can you hear me, Doctor? Okay, it appears it's a bit frozen, but let me bring in Professor Godfred Bokping. He's on phone whilst we try to connect once again to Dr. Anani. Professor Bokping, we are grateful for your time here on the probe. I'm sure you've been monitoring events. There have been proposals on revenue and expenditure, and we are hoping to save some 83.5 billion if government agrees to this. But interestingly, I'm seeing review of free SHS amongst others, but I see Mr. Akers signing amongst others. But you've been looking at the proposal that have been put forward by the Individual Bondholders Forum. These are things that you feel that once we implement will definitely put us back on track as a country?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening to your statement. Yes, certainly, I think one of the
Professor Bokping, if you could speak up into the microphone, because you seem very far away. We can hardly hear you.
Is it better now?
It's much better now. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So good evening. Good evening to our terrorist business. I think what the technical committee has done is quite illustrative of the level of wastefulness that we have presided over the years, decades, let me put it that way. And I think one of the clarity they brought to bear was the quantification of a lot of the things that we've been talking about in terms of the fiscal savings through expenditure cards and other revenue enhancement measures and all of that. So the ball now is in the court of the minister in the space of the fiscal savings that the committee has documented. And what makes it beautiful is the fact that this is not just individual bondholders who start somewhere and felt that let's cut this. But this was also done together with the reps of the Minister of Finance. So in the face of that saving, it's going to be difficult for the Minister of Finance to still ask individual bondholders to come on board, regardless of how the terms look like at the end of the day. So, and I think even in the absence of that, it was always going to be difficult to include individual bondholders, especially pensioners. In such difficult times, we've been living through 2-decade inflation era in the past 12 months or so. So even these bonds that we are talking about, they having haircuts here and there. They've really suffered from inflationary pressure. The yields are negative in real terms and all of that. And I think that for the sake of our democracy and social cohesion and stability, I think it is prudent that individual bondholders are excluded. On the other hand, one would have thought that we could use the stake of individual bondholders as a base to ask for deeper structural reforms and fiscal reforms in exchange for some haircuts, because there are some institutional reforms, governance, structural, fiscal, that participating financial institutions cannot ask for. But individual bondholders can come to the table and demand those, because that is where the future lies. Because the same structure, cost structure, structural mistakes that brought us here, that actually makes corruption more user-friendly than seeking the common interest. If we don't change anything about those structural weaknesses, fiscal slippages, and the rest of them, then we can apply this first-level haircut, and probably in less than 3 years, the hair will grow again, and we have to cut it again, right? So we need to look at it broadly, and I'm sure that if we look at this in the light of an IMF program, unless we are able to support the IMF program with some level of structural reform, governance reform, which will also entail amendments or so to our constitution, then we cannot say that the 17th IMF program will be the last one.
Okay.
And that is why we've gone to the IMF one too many. And yet we haven't seen whatever gains we make from the IMF. And of course, over the years, we can't take that away from the IMF. We have to give them the credit. They're coming on board. We have seen macroeconomic stability. We see some reforms and all of that. But anytime the IMF exits, we also exit those macroeconomic gains. The question is, how do we make them sustainable? Remember, the macroeconomic stability the IMF will bring is going to come at a price. It's going to come at a cost. It's not the IMF that is going to pay that cost. We are going to pay that cost. The cost is going to be borne by Ghanaians. Unfortunately, those macroeconomic adjustment costs may not be borne proportionately by the rich and the poor, most likely to be borne disproportionately by the vulnerable, the weak, who have no cushion or so. So I congratulate, of course, I haven't seen a statement from the minister excluding individual bondholders, but I think so far the gains that have been made, I need to congratulate even the Minister of Finance himself also. Of course, we would have wished that he had resigned long ago, but we will still say he has done well, accommodated a number of revisions and all of that. I still believe that it could have been better than this.
But Prof, not to cut in here, but these alternatives of expenditure and revenue that were put forward by the Individual Bondholders Forum, or should I say the technical committee, were these not known to government? Were they new? Did it have to take the Individual Bondholders Forum to put forward these proposals before government will know that they ought to do this? Why are people in the helm of affairs then?
Hello?
Yes, if you can hear me, Prof.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, that's why we have been saying that it will only take crisis of a level like this to get a politician to the table. In good times, they will never show up. And that is why we have been saying all this while that, in fact, this is a good crisis where we can leverage on what government is asking us to do beyond higher taxes that we've been paying, that if you want me to have a haircut, then this is the time to demand, in exchange, greater expenditure cuts and reform in a manner that sustains the future of this country. So it's good news. But the next important level will be, what will the minister do with this expenditure cuts? Unfortunately, I didn't see that in the committee's report. Of course, I don't have all the details. Are there some timelines of implementation of this reform, expenditure cuts, revenue enhancement measures? Are there some timelines? When would we start this and the rest of them? But beyond that, I think that it's an important first step. The information is out there. We congratulate the individual bondholders. In fact, the way they rally within the shortest possible time, but one will wish that it will not just end here, that we will leverage on this momentum to actually impress on government to cut expenditure with these types of government with clear timelines. Look, this is the time for Ghana to shape Ghana for the common good.
Okay.
If we miss this point, then it's going to be difficult. That is the only way we can get the politicians across the two political parties. Because what we are talking about today about Ghana's debt is not solely NPP's debt, right? We look at the public debt in cumulative terms. Government come to add, retire some and all of that. So it's Ghana's debt. So this is the only way we can access, get the politicians to pay a higher political cost, okay, and internalize the austerity at their level, which then can lessen the burden on creditors.
Okay.
If we fail that, they will get away with murder. The incentive for them to borrow, misapply them through corruption, and later come to us for us to have a haircut, even when we will not even have the option of choosing the style, is going to be high. Okay.
Well, since we are on phone, let me just bring in this particular issue also, the question about whether we are able to get the IMF board level agreement. Unfortunately, it appears that we've just lost Professor Bokping on the phone because now that we have these alternatives and hoping to get our debt to GDP ratio by 55% or so, are we able to secure that board level agreement by March, like we've heard President Akufo-Addo and some government officials say? What exactly is the situation now, since we are waiting to hear from government? But I'm told Dr. Anani Antwi is back on Zoom as well. Let's see if we have a better connection to him. Dr. Anani, I'm sure you can hear us loud and clear now, can you?
Yes, I can hear you, except that my internet is not very stable at all.
We'll make use of what we have so far. So you were telling us about your understanding of Friday's meeting in particular and the promise that was made. Did I lose you again, Doc? Okay, so it appears I've just lost Dr. Anani Antwi. I hope it's not the debt exchange program that is holding on to his internet, but we'll try and get, we'll connect again with him because I need to hear from the pensioners also on this. But these alternatives that was put forward, beautiful work. I've been looking at all the expenditure, the revenue, and then also some other recommendations that you're giving. But a committed fight against corruption, that was pretty left open. But I want to find out, at least, when it came to the issue about the free SHS and the review, what really did the government side say to this?
So, because there are public officers,
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure that I can say what each person said.
Exactly. Not, at least it's a technical committee. I know that your side, we're pushing for a review. Is this something that has been agreed on?
No, so that's, as a committee, we all own it.
Okay.
Yes, we all own it. And let's not even forget, you know, when the free SHS started, the finance minister was very clear that we should do means testing. Those who can pay, that's the parents who can pay, should be allowed to pay.
Okay.
And then those who cannot will get free SHS.
That was his initial position.
Yeah, the president overruled him, and then he had to, you know, just toe the line. So if years on, we've come back to the same position. Yeah, but to be honest, look, and I, despite the committee thing, if you ask me, look, I'm an ardent supporter of free SHS. Out of 83 billion, you know, free SHS, we spend just about 2.5 billion. We can fund free SHS as it is now, okay? Yes, we can.
Okay.
You remember even when the president was coming into office, when he was asked, how are you going to fund free SHS? He said, oh, proceeds from corruption. That's why he told the BBC. I'm sure you guys have, we've dealt with this several times on News File. He said, oh, with proceeds from corruption. Unfortunately, when he came, the corruption has gone higher. And he's not been able to take the proceeds from corruption to do that. You see where the failure starts? Talk was cheap then, very, very cheap for him. He comes in, and the figures from the Auditor General's report, that's the irregularities, have gone higher. You know, last year, so in 2022, that's 2021, yes, the figure went up to about 17 billion, the irregularities, right? Yeah, so it's been increasing. So the simple point is that, though you see the free SHS, that point made, this is a personal view. Okay. I'm thinking that we should hold the president's feet to the fire. He promised that we could fund free SHS with proceeds from corruption. So in our report, you see that the money report shows that there's about 13.9 billion from 2016 to 2021, right? Yes, let's go after the people who have these monies, and then we can fund free SHS as it is currently.
Okay,
yes.
So you're looking at saving 83.5 billion if all the proposals that you've put forward are, like, you know, carried through, or government actually follows through what exactly it is that the committee has agreed on. But did we have any timelines as to when exactly they will start implementing this? Yes,
so some of them, even from their very nature, they are immediate. Others, naturally, are medium term. Yeah, so because we're hard pressed for time, it was agreed that if there was time, we could rearrange them, the immediate ones and then the ones that are medium term. Okay. So naturally, because we've been constrained and the report has been submitted, the officers, Mr. Akes, Dr. Al-Hassan and the rest would see to that. Yes. So,
but would you say that they actually had the blessing, or they would have the blessing of the Ministry of Finance as a whole? I know they were representing the Ministry of Finance on this technical committee meeting, but these are not decisions that they actually put forward. It was a joint committee decision that you say you all own. Yes. But is this something that government will want to own as well, you would say?
Absolutely. Absolutely, MFA. That's once again at the sloganeering level, because the minister made it very clear that this work was beautiful and that this is something that we should all commit to. So at least in terms of promises, there's a promise that's a document they should work with. But as whether he can walk the talk is another matter.
But I'm curious, Mr. People, that all these that you proposed, these are things that the Ministry of Finance ought to have known. Did they have to take you and this committee, for that matter, for government's attention to be drawn to this?
Well, this question sometimes, let me say this. You see that it appears to us that obviously they know, but for us to have gone through that, sometimes, you know, when you are dealing with an opponent, there is an information asymmetry. He has more information than we have. You see that on the face of it, what we've ended up doing is participatory democracy. He called us to the table, asked our opinion, we went and did a technical paper. Yeah, though it wasn't quite tidy, but the end product looks like it's okay. Yes.
Is it not just for the show?
No, I don't think so, because right now, at least we've done that paper, it's in the public, and let me show the low-hanging fruits. You see some of them, when you say which ones I mean, you see we put in, there's the one about right-sizing the ministries, departments and agencies. You see in Cote d'Ivoire, when because of COVID and all the other problems, they reduced their ministers. Is it from 40 to 31, or is it 41 to 31? There's that thing. Already their numbers were low, and they cut them further. So we have put in there that the Office of Government
Machinery. So you're asking for the review and right-size MDAs and SOEs to maintain compensation expenses equivalent to 2022. This should include drastically reducing the number of MDAs, ministers, and staff at the Office of Government Machinery. Example, presidential staffers. And that's supposed to save us 6.5 billion. You think this will happen?
Yes, we have to, because then there will be no moral authority to say individuals should come on board.
But this is not the first time you've been calling for the reduction of ministers. And we haven't seen anything happen.
Good. MF, but I think now the mood of the country is changed. You see now so many people have come on board, right? Yes, so many people are on board. You see the IFS, Institute of Fiscal Studies. You see on Thursday also, front page of the Daily Graphic. You see Dr. John Kwachi there. Cut, you make several billions. IEA the day before. So Wednesday, Thursday, you saw a number of front pages, right? Yeah, so I think something can be done, because the presidential staffers and all those, the hangers on, there are too many. You remember Dr. Bampo, when the organized labor were doing it, they said even the Minister of Finance himself, there were too many party apparatchiki there, right? Yeah, Dr. Bampo, the Executive Secretary of Clocksack. Yeah, he mentioned they worked there and they could say it. So they've seen the figures. So the figures have to come down. So I think right now the whole nation is feeling it. Christian Council, you see they've thrown in their lot, the Catholic Bishops' Conference, right? Even Council of State. So it tells that this is the right time. That's the same point Dr. Bopin was making, that, look, the president has to stand up. Enough of the sloganeering. This is his last opportunity to salvage his image. Otherwise, he goes away with only one legacy. That will be free SHS. Yes, it's not good for him. He has to stand up. Maybe he has to step outside, step out from his advisors. He hasn't had the best of advice, or maybe if it's that they've advised him, he hasn't listened. This is his last opportunity to drastically cut down the numbers, cut down the freebies and all those things. Yes.
Okay. Well, Dr. Eduenji, did you also, I think he's joining us via phone now because we have technical challenges with his Zoom. Doc, I'm sure you can hear me now. We'll try and work on it. Yes. So you were telling me what exactly for you as pensioners. I know you're fighting this separately from the Individual Bondholders Forum. So for you as pensioners, you were asking for an exemption. You were saying individual bondholders cannot be, at least your pensioners cannot be part of this particular debt exchange program. So from Friday's meeting, do you get a sense that you are not part, you're exempted? Is that the promise you were giving?
We are not exempted. The minister didn't exempt anybody. The minister, as my friend Martin said, just said the government will be honoring the coupons. So it means if you opt out, you're hoping that the government will honor your coupons. That is what the minister has said. That, to me, does not amount to exemption. We want to be exempted. We don't want to be treated that voluntarily. If you don't come, government will be paying you. We want the government to exempt us as it has exempted the pension fund. So we know long ago that the thing is voluntary. And if you don't go under it, you are entitled to your coupon. But the danger that we think we face is that the government has come out to say its ability to mobilize resources to pay for these obligations has been impaired, and that going forward it will not be able to do what is needed to be done. That is why it is exchanging these old bonds for new bonds. So we know that if we are holding on to the old bonds, it has its own disadvantages, given the economic situation that we face now. So we want to be given a complete exemption, as has been granted to the pension fund. So we know it is voluntary, but we still want an exemption from the exchange program as has been given to pension funds.
And this particular position that you're espousing now, I'm sure, was made clear at that meeting on Friday. I know that you've been talking about the fact that bondholders will pay their coupons and principals. Did you get a sense that this fight is going to be over anytime soon? Because we have just 2 days to go for the deadline. What then happens to pensioners? What happens to your members?
It is not over until the exemption has been granted us. As I said, we know long term it is voluntary. And the minister keeps on saying that it is voluntary. We all know it's voluntary. But we are saying that it was voluntary when the pension funds were exempted. Mm-hmm. And so regardless of the fact that it is voluntary or not voluntary, we pensioners want to be exempted. We want to stand at where pension funds are standing.
So the payment of coupons and principals of your members does not answer the question or the request that you're making for you?
It's a government obligation already.
Okay.
The government, that's why he said the minister cannot say he won't pay. It is an obligation that the government has with all bondholders that you pay. And under no circumstances will the minister be able to say we won't pay. But of course, when the creditor, the debtor is having problems and it comes to a time that he says, well, I promise you I will pay. But as a result of A, B, C, and D, I'm unable to pay. That is how debt becomes default. So the fact that you cannot say you won't pay, that is established. But we don't want the situation where you have promised to pay, but you will not be able to pay. And so exempt us, there we know you have decided to exempt us. And then we stand as the pensions have been standing. I believe whatever government has planned to do for the pension funds, we want it to do the same thing for the funds of pensioners.
Well, this must be such a long and tiring fight, at least for your members. What really is the talk? Reporting back to them about Friday's meeting, amongst others, what indication actually are these members of yours giving you when it comes to the posturing of government in this fight?
Well, we still are going on with our engagement. You recall last Friday we have met former President John Ejikumu, who has also promised to act on our behalf to get things done. We are arranging to meet the Chief of Staff tomorrow to also impress on her to do that. We are arranging for a meeting. I don't know whether we will get it tomorrow or not, but we have an arranged meeting with the Chairman of Council of State tomorrow. We are meeting the Council of State. We've already met the PUC, and they have also given us their backing that they don't see any difference between those who are yet to come on pension and we who are on pension. So that agreement has been fought well.
Look, we appear to have missed your final words, Dr. Edwinji. Okay, it appears that it's just not a good night for Dr. Edwinji's connection, but at least the point has been made for them. The fight is not over until they get a total exemption, but from what they are getting from that Friday meeting is not an exemption, even though coupons and principals will be paid and they will take the fight all the way. He tells us he's going to the Chief of Staff, amongst others. They've met former President Ejikumu, the Council of State Chairman. He says they'll be meeting as well. This is an issue we'll be following up on. I'm told Senor Hosi also joins us via Zoom at the very last minute on this. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hosi. We are grateful. So we've been talking about the work that you've done, at least with the technical committee, and then the outcome of Friday's meeting extensively. The concern now is whether this is a promise to keep. When exactly are we going to see an official communication of a sort from government on this? Should we take it as a done deal? What exactly is it? You have to
Yes, I'm on Friday. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Senor.
Very well. I think on Friday there were three major decision points. The first one was the minister's adoption. Appreciation for the report, and indicating that it was a good report, which definitely Ghana needed to consider and action some of them, and also our willingness to support government in that entire process. The other thing was the minister reiterating the fact that this process is voluntary, but more importantly, affirming the position that he would honor the obligations under the existing securities if members do not intend or opt not to participate in the debt exchange. He nonetheless encouraged that to those that can, they should join because it's a community. He needs a certain number to cross the Jordan. If I should use his terminology, as he crossed the 55% target by 2028, or whatever levels that make it possible for him to actually acquire his deal with the IMF. We indicated that we are not opposed to the entire debt exchange program. We support it conceptually. Our only challenge has to do with the involvement of individuals and the sensitivity of that subsector of the investors in this entire mix, who are actually not beneficiaries of any of the interventions that provide the investors who are giving up their old securities an option to recover. We don't have a financial stability fund. We don't have a need for any prudential rules revised. So we are a very different class, which I think the minister clearly understood. He re-emphasized the fact that he was not going to punish anybody for not anybody, in the individuals who don't participate. He's not going to punish them if they don't. Nonetheless, he held the view that in his technical opinion, he thinks that there may be some trading benefits that will accrue to the new bonds as opposed to the old bonds. We so far have an alternate opinion on that, but that will still be a secondary market activity which neither the minister or IBF has direct control over. So we'll leave that to the markets to determine. So for the minister or the Ministry of Finance, tomorrow we are hoping to receive a new offer as an option for those who we want to participate in it, which will do a technical evaluation of and advise our general membership and the general public for them to also make their independent decisions. The main thing that we are all working our way for with this entire engagement is clarity on the fact that individuals who hold on to their existing bonds will suffer no harm, will not suffer any discrimination as far as government's obligations to it are concerned. It's already enshrined for them in law, but it's very important that an operator of policy actually makes that commitment to diffuse a lot of the anguish and anxiety that has bedeviled many individuals who have opted to trust government and then invest in these bonds. So I think we are getting to the end of this entire debacle. I think that we should find some nice consensus, and hopefully sometime tomorrow or early Tuesday, we should definitely have a communique jointly with the minister. But I will take the opportunity to thank the minister and his team for the cooperation that we have enjoyed so far.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about appreciation of the report and which ones exactly government decided on, at least to take on. But this, those who have already signed on as we speak, what happens to them as we await this particular new offer? Are they at risk? What exactly happens? Those who signed on.
You are at liberty to withdraw you are at liberty to withdraw your offer or your consent at any point in time before the deadline. I think we sent a circular that all those who have requested for withdrawals, government has been cooperative enough to grant them if you want to just change your mind.
Okay.
If you want to wait for the offer, wait for the offer. Look at it. Whichever you think works for you, you take it. If you want to stick with your current bonds, you keep it. The market is what it is. For example, I'll tell you, somebody may just have a 1-year bond or a bond that is maturing just next year. Mm-hmm. The person may think that if he's not going to get a bond that will span 5 years, it may be better for him. We'll let you know the options, the implications. And as technical people, we'll give you our honest opinion. And you make your call. Everybody has their own life goals. The most important thing for us was to protect the rights of individuals who have invested in government and wanted to retain it, and also make people have proper visibility and understanding of what was at stake. It is that advocacy that's giving people light for them to realize that they have options, and that the deal as originally presented was at variance with their interests as originally thought.
Okay.
With the new deal coming up, we'll do the same analysis, but we'll give the power back to the people for people to make their own call. And those who think the new offer works for them, you join on. Those who believe the old offer works, you stay on. And IBF will be here to facilitate the enforcement of your rights. And at this juncture, I don't think there's even a worry because the minister has been categorical. You keep it, he would honor it. But he was talking to us as individuals. We can't say same for other groups or that he's been engaging with. But the minister has been quite consistent about the need for him to cross a certain score.
Okay.
And we support it. We support his effort at the DD. Our only issue is that there are catastrophic economic and social dynamics that create catastrophic implications for the citizenry if you add individuals and the collective investment schemes.
Okay.
So we are not at war with government at all. I think now we have understood each other and we are having good cooperation. So we work together so we can turn around our country.
Okay, this new deal that we are looking forward to, what does it look like? I'm sure you have your ears on the ground. You've been working with government on this. Does it look like a good deal? What does it look like, you'd say?
Can you come again, MFA?
I was asking about this new deal that we are waiting government to bring about maybe tomorrow. What does it look like? Is it a good deal from where you sit, from what you've seen so far or heard so far, Senor?
We currently don't have visibility of the deal. We are yet to receive the deal. So hopefully tomorrow we get a deal. Either we have an offer tomorrow or government just says, guys, I don't think we can get you anything that's meaningful for you. So look, let's just move on. We'll look at other ways to compensate it. In any case, you've done a great job trying to come up with great ideas. We want to work with you to see how we can implement it on the fiscal readjustment side. Okay. But as we sit, we are just humbly waiting for the finance minister and his team. And we hope to cooperate with them to resolve the issues.
Okay. Not to take anything away from the finance minister, but it's his word to keep, at least from what the word that he's giving you in that meeting, the promise that he's giving you, is it a promise to keep? Because over the period, we've heard one thing and something else comes up. So would you be surprised to hear anything else tomorrow, Tuesday?
Let me put it this way. I've told people that when the minister started speaking earlier in the day, in this exercise, he put it across that it was voluntary by force. But now he has admitted that it's voluntary. You can never have voluntary by force. What the minister said on Friday is very grounded in law. It is actually the reflection of what is legally required and mandated to do.
Okay.
So I can understand, because the minister had a short time trying to put everything together, he has to use some Russian tactics or somewhat a bit of a bullying tactics to see how he can push people to really get together. That's what happens sometimes when you're managing policy. You have to force the thing. And that's what happened. But I think that we also did our bit of trying to force the thing back so that there's proper visibility and balance. Okay. Now we all have balance. And I have to commend the likes of my colleague Martin for the great work that we've all been doing together to protect the interests of our broader economy and also our own citizenry. And I think the minister clearly identifies with it.
Okay.
I told you the last time, MFA, individuals or households are the primary source of loanable funds to an economy. If you crash their confidence in the financial system, you may as well kiss your economy goodbye.
Okay. Mr. Jose, we are grateful. And you know that we are in this. We'll be speaking to you over the period till we see that something concrete has come up. We're grateful for your time. That's Senor Jose, is a convener. Okay, they're joining us via Zoom. I'll wrap up with you, Mr. Kpebu. We have just a few minutes to go. So this is where we are when it comes to all the work that you've done so far. And we are looking forward, we are told, about a new package from government. So for us, individual bondholders, those watching, what should we do briefly?
Yeah, so as I've said clearly, that this point was raising some differences when at the meeting, look, so far we've given the information to members. They are happy to hear that what is in their hands they can keep.
Okay.
Whatever government comes up with, as I mentioned earlier on,
Okay.
that's another matter.
Okay.
But,
Mr. Kwebu, we are grateful. And definitely during the week, we'll be interacting again on this. We are indeed grateful for your time. Mr. Martin Kwebu has been my guest. Senior host via Zoom. Dr. Anani Eduenchi also joining us via phone. And Professor Godfred Bokping. Another edition of The Probe comes your way at same time. There will be a repeat of the show at 6 p.m. right here on the Joy News channel tomorrow. For radio audience, A Walk with Jesus is up next. Thank you so much for your time.